Hi, and welcome to Cockatude, Cockatoos with Attitude, and Friends. Yes, we have a couple of new entries, and this is our special memorial for Chloe. Chloe passed away on the day we celebrated her birthday. We don't actually know when her birthday was, but we were celebrating that on the 1st of January.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
The Chloe Sanctuary hopes to give you insight into the health and happiness of your companion parrots. We hope to help you build happy homes using reliable and proven tools. The best homes are built on a rock-solid foundation. And the best foundation for a happy home is the bedrock of science. When we stand on the shoulders of giants, the scientists who have worked long and diligently to understand our companions, we can reach new heights of understanding. And understanding is the key to success.
I think treated, most of these birds have a good prognosis, and I would say
What does avian veterinary medicine have to tell us about our feathered friends? How can the tools of behavior shaping make our homes happier for us and our companions?
Shake.
How can we deal with biting, screaming, or other misbehavior? What is it like to live among parrots? Let them roam around about you and share a life with them. Of the Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a nonprofit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.
She went quickly. She went in my hands. There was nothing we could really do. When they're on the way out, it's really obvious. In less than 5 minutes, she was gone. But she left a bunch of birds behind her that wouldn't have been anywhere. Who knows where these guys would have been if it hadn't been for her. She went through a lot of changes, and there's a lot of things I'd like to talk about. First, I'd like to urge you to please support us by giving us $1 an episode on Patreon, or donate through PayPal or Mighty Cause, but please give us a little funding. We could certainly use it, and it's not like we're asking for the world, you know. These videos take a lot of time and effort. It's not just recording them. They have to be run through Final Cut, and I have to switch angles and adjust volume and fix color and all kinds of fun stuff. Right? Well, let me introduce who's here to say goodbye to Chloe. We have Lucy. Didn't know her that long, but she knew her. And we have Lorelei, her ersatz daughter. And Snowball, who has been crying for her for, 16 days. Today was the first day that he stopped crying all the time. But he was just wailing constantly. These guys made for life, and I'd look him in the face and we'd share a moment, he and I, wouldn't we there, Snowball? Snowbird, Snowbird. Nice Snowbird. Nice Snowbird. You're a good girl, good boy. Come here, Snowball. Come over and sit with me. You want to sit with Dad? Come on, baby. Come sit with me. Come on. Hi, Snowball. You can sit up here, sweetheart. Let me get the Snowball. Well, I've told this story before, but I'm going to try to go through the twists and turns of what happened with Chloe, and maybe you guys can learn something from it. I didn't know a lot about birds. I've been around a few when I was younger. Cockatiels, and my mother had an African gray for a while. But I was just learning about them when I got Chloe. I didn't know anything. In fact, I was studying Parrots for Dummies, which isn't a bad book. Actually, it's pretty good, but you can tell there were some limitations on what Nikki Mustafi could say. It's a platform where they don't like people to get negative, so she did describe having these birds as having, what it would be like to have a polar bear in your life. So I was maybe halfway through that book when I found this ad on a Usenet group called Cockatoos. I don't even know anybody uses Usenet anymore. But I found it, and it was just about an hour drive away from where I lived in Escondido at the time. And so I called the people up, and they said, we got to get rid of her this weekend, so if we can't find someone, we don't know what we're going to do. And I assumed they were going to have her euthanized, but sometimes these people just throw them out in the wild, and once they get out there, they're gone. That's another reason you need to recall train your birds. Most birds, if they fly up away, they'll get up into a tree and look down on you. And if you've got them recall trained, you can call them back. But anyway, I went down to this place, this home, and she was just sitting on his shoulder outside in the open. She had a lot of feather destructive behavior. I mean, her feathers were pretty damaged, but it was obvious she could still fly. And he told me stories about her, and and his wife made a few comments, and I got one cage, actually a couple of cages for her cage she'd been in, which was kind of small for a cockatoo, and then a couple of carrying cages, and got her back. He said, she'll just ride on your shoulder. I would never do that today. You always want to have your bird in a secured cage in the seat next to you or somewhere in the vehicle. Preferably where they can see, because like Coco gets motion sick, so if she can't see while she's in that little cage, she's going to get sick. And motion sickness is not a good thing with birds. It can be life-threatening, so you don't want that to happen. She rode my shoulder all the way back up, and at the time I was married. That marriage was falling apart at that point in time, and I ended up moving into a room offered to me by a friend, a little 10 by 10 room, and that's where Chloe and I got to know each other. And my first cute picture of her is her sitting up looking down at me. But she was totally, within a short time, totally focused on me. I don't know if we were technically mated, but I didn't understand. You're not supposed to pet him down the back, that kind of thing. Right, Snowball? Right, Snowball? He's still a little sad. He's usually much more active than this. Oh, aren't you, baby? Yeah. He looks up at me with those big eyes. Yeah. It's tough when they lose a mate, especially when you can't go out and find another one, Right, Snowball? Usually a happy bird, and he's just not that happy anymore. So Chloe was with me when I did all the paperwork, and all 5 pounds of it, 2.5 pounds of paperwork to the state of California, 2.5 pounds of paperwork to the IRS. Got the book on how to do a nonprofit in California. That's a special book for California. The rest of the country has one from Nolo Press. California has another. You know us, we're a little different. Love the state, though. No complaints. Yes, Peach, especially the weather here. If you have Raynaud's syndrome like I do, where if you're outside and it's 65 degrees, you can actually get frostbite. You want to live in a place that's warm. And Arizona might be a little too hot. I don't know. If I wasn't in California, I would be in Arizona or Nevada, or New Mexico, someplace that's warmer. It tends to stay warm. Hi, Peach. Hi, baby. That's my girl. That's my Peach. So, the first bird I brought in was Murray, who was a Congo African gray. And Murray and Chloe just basically ignored each other, so that was fine, no problem. And the next one was Lorelei. She was just a baby, 3 months old when I got her. In California, you can't sell them that young unless you sell them direct to an individual, not to a pet store. Pets, they have to be weaned to go into a pet store, which usually means the breeder is going to force wean them, which isn't good for the bird. Okay? They're force weaned, they're probably going to have digestive and dietary problems the rest of their life. And with the food that most of these breeders feed their birds, they're already starting off bad because these guys learn by example, okay? Like us, they have an extended juvenile period. Theirs is anywhere from 1 year to 2 years long, these larger parrots. That's where they learn from their mother, their father, and who both do the duties of taking care of the child. Remember, they're not mammals. They don't have to feed them milk. Either bird can regurgitate to the young. So during that period, they learn what to eat and how to behave. And unfortunately, you can't learn that from a breeder. So, not a human breeder, the ones that breed these. Breeder birds are usually confused anyway. They generally take the eggs away from them once they're laid and they put them in an incubator. If you knew that your child was going to be locked in a cage for its whole life and never be able to be a real bird, in your case, a real human, just locked in a cage and brought out maybe once or twice a week in most cases, you wouldn't want that for your child. So they don't want it either. So they'll usually destroy their eggs. So Chloe was raised in captivity. It's pretty obvious. She was bonded to people. She had dietary problems. I had to retrain her to eat after I learned what she should eat. At first, I was feeding her Zupreme pellets, I believe, and some seed mixture. That didn't last very long, though, because I'm one of those people that likes to study and know what the heck they're doing. So I found out that she should be on pellets. And I had her on one brand, but eventually I switched over to Harrison's because Harrison's is the best. I don't think anybody would dispute that that's the best pellet. And, fruits and vegetables and stuff. But anyway, at first, I didn't know anything. And so I made a few mistakes. Like you will, if you don't know what you're doing. You can be driving a car for 30 years and you don't know the first thing about an internal combustion engine. So as I learned, I realized what I noticed first, after I got her a new cage, which I talked about in the last episode, but what I noticed was that she was constantly nesting. Now, I hadn't read enough to really understand that this is a behavior that's going to be there, okay? There's nothing you can do about that. I'm sorry, Peach. I have to preen this one, so she's going to yell at me a little bit if I don't preen properly, but I don't want her to have an impacted feather as she's had before. And you never pet a bird below the neck, except if you have a bird that has 6 fused vertebrae in her neck and she can't reach her tail feathers, unless you want to go in and have another couple of $1,000 surgeries. You need to preen in that case. Okay, there are exceptions. So I saw the nesting behavior and I thought, oh well, she can't have babies because I knew she'd had a salpingo hysterectomy. I knew that from Dr. Stonebreaker's office. His wife had given me her medical records. They were released by the people who had Chloe originally. And Chloe had been at Free Flight in Del Mar before. And that was when Dr. Stonebreaker was there. He passed away. And his wife took it over and made it a nonprofit. But anyway, I thought that maybe her problem would be alleviated by having a baby. So we drove a long way up into the mountains in San Diego, and we picked between 2 birds. Lorelei was the one that was attached to her sister, just following her sister around, and we thought, well, I thought, You know, I say we, but I thought that if she was so dependent on her sister, she might also be dependent on Chloe, and it worked out. It worked out until Lorelei became an adult, and when Lorelei became an adult, at that point she became a threat to Chloe and Snowball's relationship, at which point they severed their little ties. They wouldn't get within a couple of feet of each other at that point. Mainly because Lorelei was looking for any male that was around, and there weren't many. There was Cecil, and there was Snowball, and, you know, so she was trying to get to Snowball, and that was it for Chloe. So, Chloe, when we had the fire, she lost her home. Her cage was damaged severely in the fire, but our good friends Dan and Deb had it recoated for us. It was powder coated again, and Chloe got it back. Well, you could tell we had to move. We had to pick everything up and move all the birds. At that point, we had 6. Okay, we had Snowball and Bob and Lorelei, Chloe, and who am I missing? Oh well, the brain doesn't work. This is a tough episode to do, thinking about, you know, her, but we got moved up here, and I think I made a mistake because I put Chloe next to Snowball's cage. I should have had them separated so she wouldn't be right next to him. But Chloe started losing weight, and she kept going over to where Snowball's cage was and facing up to him and sitting there and just staring at him. So I thought, well, she can't have any babies. What could it hurt to put her in a room, in the nighttime room during the day, so they could, you know, be a couple. So that happened, and for 5 years that was just great. Although when a female becomes mated and nesting with a male, they start to pay very little, they start paying less attention to the humans around them. So after 5 years, Chloe became more of a real outside bird, you know, a real bird that would be like out in the wild. She didn't know how to be out in the wild, but she was into nesting, she was into protecting the nest, she was into being around Snowball, and then he turned on her. Not his fault. It happens in captivity. It has to do with the way these guys are raised by breeders, and they miss steps in their development and something goes wrong. So with cockatoos, it's almost always, well, I would say there's no record of females killing males. Males will kill females. They were never in the same cage at night. But what I found was I went in there one day, I heard her crying. So I go in, and there he is pulling her head feathers off. So I started thinking back, what had been going on? Well, when I'd been in there playing with him, playing Frisbee, she would run off, fly off, and go sit somewhere away from all of it. And it didn't dawn on me at all. When I started to suspect something was wrong with her, it was when all of a sudden, she started shooting out a whole bunch of extra urine. And that meant that the renal shunt, it's something in their bodies, we don't have this, but if their livers start to fail, they will just bypass everything and go straight to the kidneys and out. So when that happens, it's not diarrhea. You get a whole bunch of extra liquid, like twice as much liquid, the clear liquid, right, as you do the other components, the urates, which are the either white or milky colored excretion, and then the tubular feces. So I took her down to Dr. Jenkins, and he tested her out, and she was having liver problems. So I had to give her an injectable antibiotic for 7 days, intramuscular, right in here in the chest. And at that point, she was such a married bird, such a partnered bird, that I could do what I wanted with her. I mean, I could inject her or whatever, and that was fine, but she wasn't looking at me much. She was more focused on him. So her eyes would usually just be like scanning the environment, not paying attention to me. I was like scenery. That was because I let them mate. So you may not want to do that. Okay, and especially if they can lay eggs, you definitely don't want to do it. Because if they're laying eggs and you're taking them away, you can cause problems where they don't have enough calcium and, and other issues and, health problems again. So it was a rare reason that I did it. I didn't see a problem, but now I clearly see that that wasn't a good idea. I didn't even know about mate aggression at that time. I hadn't read the manual for parrot behavior, a manual of parrot behavior. I hadn't got that deep into my studies yet. No vibrating down there, little girl. I'm not going to preen you if you're going to vibrate. No, I'm not going to preen you if you're going to vibrate. So he was keeping her away from her food, apparently, and water. So that's why her digestive system was having problems. That's how she got the infection. So it was just a few days after I started the injections, I saw him do this to her. And, of course, I immediately separated them. From then on, until we got the aviary, they were never allowed to be near each other, except if I was in the socialization room observing. So they were never allowed to be together, except when I was around and able to watch. So, as time went on after that, she became more listless. If I didn't leave a box in there for her to sit in, then she would start sitting on the bottom of the cage and just looking sad. Got the tests done. She was healthy, physically healthy. No problems with her liver anymore. No problems with the kidneys. All the tests came back positive. No elevated white blood count or anything. And yet, here she was. She just was like a bird that had just had enough. She'd been with one person, got torn away from there, had to make 2 moves, all these new birds in her environment. She'd gotten into a mated relationship, had a adopted daughter, and so that went sour, and then he went sour for her. And the only thing that she really cared about then was her cage. And she wasn't playing with toys. No matter how much you tried to encourage her to do anything, she just wouldn't. And I think she just had it. I think that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. When she did have a good 5 years with him, though. I mean, it was in the 6th year that she started suffering because he became mate aggressive. And again, that's the breeder's fault. That's the captivity fault. It's not his fault. He didn't cause it. Did you, buddy boy? No. And you can, he really misses her. He still does. I've waited this long to do this memorial because we couldn't do the memorial with him just crying the whole time, because that's what he would be doing. Right now he's just looking sad, but so I took her to the Renaissance fairs where she liked to go, and I used to take 2 birds, and no one was paying any attention to her, and it was because she wasn't paying any attention to anyone else. She had become, for all intents and purposes, just a cockatoo hen. And she still felt, I'm fairly sure of this from the way she behaved, she still felt mated to him. When we were in the aviary, she would sit next to him. But if any other bird, except for Cecil, she would let Cecil preen her sometimes. Cecil's pretty good at he preens sugar, and he's not even his species. He preens salamander, and that's not only is it not his species, but it's also not the opposite sex. So, God, you guys are acting so quiet. They were all out in the aviary having a good time, but It's almost as if they know this is awake. So when I went and I saw that she was going, it was sad, but I knew she was suffering. She wasn't happy. All the birds that are in here are pretty happy, but she just, after what happened with him, that was the last straw for her. And yeah, they'd sit next to each other, and but it just wasn't the same. So I'd say talk to your vet about situations like where you're going to put your birds together, but that's really not who you need to talk to. You need to talk to an avian behavioral specialist. So if you need to talk to an avian behavior specialist, you got to find one and pay them for a consultation and talk to them about anything you're going to do that's going to cause a major issue, like bonding them with another bird. Not recommended. I definitely don't want anybody to start breeding birds. If you're considering breeding birds, you're not on my nice list, okay? You're on the list that if I could, I would have you put in jail. That's how I feel about it. But these guys are really complicated, and like him, I knew he was going to cry for a while, but I didn't know he was going to cry for 16 days. And I mean all day long. And one day, I took him out of the living room because he'd been crying for 4 or 5 hours. I was busy that day. I mean, they got out for their time and everything, but I was really busy. And he was just crying and crying and crying. So I took him out, and then Cecil started doing the same cry, like he was keeping it up for him. I put him in the back room for a little while, and Cecil just picked it up. Started doing the same cry. It's not a cry he's ever done before. It kind of, I won't do it because I don't want to get him started, but it sounds like somebody who's wailing because they lost a loved one. And it was pretty much all day and all night till he went to sleep. And he'd wake up in the morning, and before the other birds got up, you'd hear him crying. She did have some good time, though. We had a good time together before Snowball came along, and then when she got with Snowball, she had 5 years with him. But the last year just wasn't the kind of life any bird wants. He was okay. I mean, he could tell he knew something was wrong, but he didn't know he was the cause of it, or his behavior was the cause of it. But he knew something wasn't quite right. She didn't trust him anymore. She trusted me, but she didn't care for me, So the good of it was we had the decade, the 10 years I was with her, she enjoyed, I would say she enjoyed 8.5, might stretch it to 9 years. The last year was the pits for her, though. At least she went quickly. Right, Snowball? So the things to learn from this situation, dealing with someone like Chloe, or dealing with any the things you can learn from the mistakes I made, are to always consult with somebody who's been doing this for a while and is actually a trained behaviorist, okay? Someone who is a trained behaviorist. Don't go to somebody that says, oh, I've had birds for 30 years. That doesn't mean anything. You may have been, like I said, you may have been driving a car for 30 years, but that doesn't mean you understand an internal combustion engine, okay? These guys are far more complicated than an internal combustion engine. Behavior is the most complicated thing you'll ever learn. I think that's a paraphrase from Dr. Zellig's course. And that's something else. I was taking Dr. Zellig's course for a number of reasons, to advance my skills, but working with Roman and with Chloe were my two main focuses. I wanted to try if I could bring Chloe out of this doldrum she was in. Obviously, she just wasn't happy. And then I wanted to work with Roman so I can get him out into the aviary and take away a lot of his fear. His fears are based on whoever had him pinioned. There's 2 feathers on his primary side, on his left and on his right, that have been removed and they won't grow back in. Okay? That was obviously done by a vet somewhere. And so he doesn't have a good sense of balance. That's why you don't want to clip your bird's wings, because if they lose their sense of balance, just try it. Try walking around, with your knees bent. Squat down and walk around like a Russian dancer doing that Russian dance where they, do the kick and everything. It's not easy for them. And if they can't balance, just, a physical imbalance can cause a mental imbalance. So, it's critical to let them be birds, but you have to keep them away from mating and bonding, either with humans or with another bird. Now, what I thought about different things I could have done. When I saw she wanted to bond with him, if I'd seen it early enough, I don't know that I did, I could have rehomed one or the other. Okay? I wouldn't have wanted to, but I could have. That was one option. Early enough, I could have put them in 2 separate rooms. Once they really got attached, that wouldn't do any good, because they just talk to each other from the different rooms. And, once they start doing that number, then it's not going to help. It's possible that if she had gone to another home or Snowball had gone somewhere else, she might have changed, but I don't think so. My gut feeling is that she wanted Snowball and she was going to waste away if she didn't get him. I could have been wrong. I don't know. Nobody knows these guys perfectly. Do they, Snowball? No. And you guys. Yeah, it's talking about 2 birds trying to become mates. You're not going to get mated, Lorelei. Lorelei. Hello. Just letting her know this is a preening session and nothing else. And she's got it. I can tell by the look on her face. Cecil, you be a gentleman now. So, you need to learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can, because if you make mistakes, you may not be able to fix them. I remember a guy who told me, he says, well, my bird looked really lonely, so I got him a female, and then neither one of them paid any attention to me. Duh. It even happens in the human world, right? You got a good friend, they get married, and now it's like you rarely hear from them. Well, hello. Except that if you wait 5 years, they'll be back, because most marriages just don't make it here in the United States. Everybody's so focused on myself, and what I can get for me. That's why we don't have too many bird rescues, because it's a lot of work. And you get up in the morning and you're focused on taking care of the birds, and you go to bed and you're thinking about what I'm going to do to take care of them better the next day. And it's one day after the other, just like that. So you don't find too many bird rescues. And we had somebody here who wanted to volunteer, and I should have known when she showed up, because she had the perfect fingernails and the perfect coiffure and all that. And I was like, oh hell, this is not going to work. I knew that wasn't going to work, right? She was supposed to be here for 4 hours to make toys, and she stayed about an hour and a half and left. I knew she was gone, but her first words were, well, this is just a house. And these birds cost a lot of money to take care of. if you take it's about $50 a bird. If you've got a lot of them, you can work it down to that. If you make your own toys and stuff, if you're not making your own toys, you can triple that. Because they need, a toy, at least a new toy every other day. Probably like Cecil needs 2 new toys every day. But, and if you're buying those, you're going to be paying $15, $20 for a big toy. You can make them for $1.50 and reuse the intermediate parts you use to put on the chain to hang the wood and the other stuff, right? So you can make a toy for $1.50 and, reusing parts and everything, and whereas if you have to buy them, you're $15, $20, $25. So it's a big commitment. You don't find too many people who want to do that, and it's hard to get money. That was one of the things that Chloe and I, when we were first looking, it was difficult. So what places like the Petco Foundation want is they want you to show how many birds you've turned over. They want you to be doing the turnover thing, right? So we bring in 100 birds a year, and we rehome 100 birds a year. That's what they want to see. And the big question I'd like to put to Petco is, do you want to do that with raccoons? You want to do that with possums? Pick a wild animal and tell me any other wild animal you want to have brought in and put into someone's home. These guys are wild animals. Just because they're tame doesn't mean they're not wild. Okay? Just because they were raised by breeders doesn't mean these guys aren't naturally wild. They are. Ask any avian behaviorist. These guys are wild animals. Just like they're dinosaurs, okay? So if you think you understand dinosaurs, you don't. As Richard Feynman said about quantum physics, if you think you understand it, you don't. Well, if you think you understand these guys, you don't. And I don't understand them. I know how to work with them. I've learned a lot, but I'm never going to fully understand Snowball, am I? No, I'm never going to fully understand the Snowball. No. But I've learned to get along and communicate with them. Right, Lorelei? She says, quit telling me not to mate. Cecil says, who are you to tell me I can't mate? And I obviously don't say that, but the look is one like, this is unnatural for you to stop us doing that. And technically it is. Living in this environment is unnatural. What's a good sized cage for an umbrella cockatoo? Oh, 40 miles by 40 miles, to quote someone from Parrots Confidential talking about macaw. Where are you going? Here. You want to come over here? Come on. Well, come on over. Hi, Coco. Hi, baby. Well, come on up. Well, come on up. You want to sit up here or you want to sit down there? Where do you want to sit? So we're going to miss her, especially Snowball. And I don't know when he's going to stop missing her. At least he's not crying. He cried like for 5 minutes today, but that's not like all day. We're going to miss her, and I try to focus on what not to do to make another mistake like that. I've got to be careful too here, because if I push her too much and I yell at her too much to separate the two, then she won't trust me anymore, and then who knows where that'll go. So, Lorelei, do you trust me, little girl? Oh, see, she still walks away a little bit. Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Mostly. She says mostly. Mostly I trust you. Mostly. Don't you? Don't you? I love you, Lorelei. She loves to be called baby girl. Why are you eating my socks? Oh, because I have my feet on the ottoman. Yeah, once you get up there, you own it, right? That's another thing. See, you learn these little things. She doesn't want my feet up there if she's sitting on it. So she'll start nibbling at my socks or my feet to get me to put them out of the way. In the beginning, being with Chloe, it was a lot of fun. She, she was focused on me. But they're birds. They have natural urges, and if you make a mistake somewhere along the line, or you run into something you just can't figure out how to deal with, and it goes too far, then you're going to be dealing with that pain. So there was a year there where she was terribly unhappy, and it's part of what sparked me to take that course from Jennifer Zellick. I've got some great tools now. I wish I could use them on her, but that's obviously not going to happen. So instead, I'm getting ready to start. I've had a lot thrown in my plate this month, but I'm going to start working on my my second set of certifications. I'm certified through Jennifer Zellick now in the course, but and that's, you take the test there, the written test. It worked out to 8-page essay test. Okay, when you take the questions and you answer them, it's an 8-page essay test. So that's a lot of work, but now I'm going to make videos showing that I use these techniques with these birds, and I've had to break some of my own habit patterns. So I will be doing those tests. I have 4 videos to do, I think, and using the principles, and then I'm going to be using them regularly. I'm using some of them now, but I wanted to really drill into myself, so that's the way I always interact. And it's great because you're always interacting positively. You're always thinking, you know, I'm coming bearing gifts. I'm going to see Cecil, so what kind of gift can I bring? Sometimes it's just petting him and telling him that you care about him, and he twists his head around and sticks his face up at you like, yay, you know. Sometimes it's a treat. But he's gotten more treats recently because I've had to separate him and Lorelei. So in order to do that, without getting him all upset at me, today we did some dancing in the aviary. He was dancing with me. And now, while he was dancing with me, Babaloo got a little bit territorial about me. So he came up and whacked me on the side of the head. So Bob likes, what are you going to do? Pull that off there, you dipstick? You little dipstick? You're so cute. Peaches, I love you. Why are you pulling that off? Huh? Because you can? You don't want the wood, but you want to pull that off. You want to sing? We miss her, don't we? Yeah. Well, I'm going to put a little slideshow of Chloe in here at the end, and aren't we? We welcome your feedback on our videos. We look forward to your insights, tips, questions, stories, and pictures. You can email us at cockatude@chloesanctuary.org, reach us on Twitter @Chloe Sanctuary, and join with us on our Facebook Chloe Sanctuary page.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.